The Guardians have been pretty good at developing and drafting college-age pitching. They've struggled a little bit with the middle-of-the-order bats. We'll give you minus Jose Ramirez. Last segment, we showed video of the top prospects that are available in this year's draft, where the Guardians have the first overall pick. And we're pleased to be joined by Keith Law, one of the best baseball writers in the country. He's the senior MLB writer for The Athletic. Keith, appreciate the time. So we went through Condon, Bazzana, Kurtz, Caglione, and then a couple of the pitchers, Chase, Burns, Hagen, Smith. Kind of the top 5, 6 guys prospect-wise in this. Who of those guys stands out to you?
To me, there's a clear one, a clear two, and then a big cluster of, I would say, somewhere between 6 and maybe 8 guys, depending on whether you're considering high school players up there. But since Cleveland picks first, kind of doesn't matter that much. I only need about 2 or 3 names, and then you can, and my expectation is they'll make offers to a couple of guys and try to get the best deal they can. Condon is the clear number one. I think he's pretty much number one on the majority of teams' boards and individual scout boards. Not all. I know some who prefer Bazzana, but Condon has now set the modern record in the BB Corbett era for home runs in a single season. I also think the ball is juiced, but he can really hit. He made a small mechanical change this year that unlocked a ton of power and just general looseness in the swing. I like the way he goes about it. I think he's got a pretty good approach. He has played center field this year. He has played third base in the past. I don't think he's a true center fielder, but I think he's athletic enough to provide defensive value somewhere. He has more ceiling, and that's why I would favor him over Bazzana, who I think is the higher probability guy. And I note that because Cleveland, particularly in its first rounds, they do like probability. Since they got away from doing the high school pitching thing, which has not really worked for them, I think they do go more for the probability guys. And Bazzana is maybe as close to a sure thing as a big league regular as there is in this draft, recognizing there's no such thing as a true sure thing, but he's pretty close. He can really, really hit. That might be the best straight up hit tool among the college players in this draft. He's a second baseman, and you have to just be willing to say that's it. He is a second baseman. He's capable. He's not great. His value is going to be in his bat. And he's another one. He's put up a pretty big home run total this year. I don't think that carries over. I think it's 12 to 15 homers, high average, high on base, but gets there really quickly. And I will say, people who have been around the kid say he is unbelievable. For folks who don't know the story, he's Australian, as in born and raised, played high school baseball there, was a star in the Australian Baseball League when he was 16 or 17, kind of talked his way onto the Oregon State team, has become one of the best players in the country, which to me, those are somewhat adverse circumstances for a baseball player. Growing up in a country where baseball is not a major tradition, not a major sport, to end up one of the best players in Division I in the United States is amazing. And I do think says a lot about the kid.
It's kind of interesting. You play that off of Condon, who was a preferred walk-on at Georgia a couple of years ago and redshirted. So the top 2 guys are guys that have kind of had to fight and figure out a way to increase that skill set.
Yes, and we're not, if we'd had this conversation 15 months ago, we weren't talking about these guys, either of these guys. Who are the top players for the 2024 draft? Some of these other guys we might discuss, J.J. Weatherholt, Chase Burns, Nick Kurtz, we knew who they were. Jack Caglione, certainly, we've known who he was. Condon in particular just kind of came out of nowhere. But after about a week of the season, I was getting texts from people like, holy cow, have you seen Charlie Condon? I was like, I don't know, it's February. I've seen 2 players so far. So no, I haven't. But it turned out, yeah, he made that mechanical adjustment, just lowering his hands, and it loosened him up, and he was a different player. And in Bazzana's case, I think we probably just all kind of underrated him. Look, there is some inherent bias too when a guy he's not super physical, he's not super athletic. We had nothing on him out of high school, right? He wasn't in the draft. Anyone probably could have signed him for $100,000 out of high school as an international free agent. I don't know, I made that number up, but something like that. Now he's obviously going to be a $5 million guy, and he should be. But we didn't have the history with him. With American kids, Canadian kids, Puerto Rican kids who come up through the draft, whether or not they're drafted, they're seen. So we have a longer track record. And I think Bazzana, in his case, we sort of asked him to prove it more than we would have the typical college player. And that's probably why there was a little bit more skepticism until at least coming out of the summer last year. I think by last fall, it was clear he was going to be a top 5 or 10 pick. Condon wasn't. So it is very interesting to me that both of those guys have now leapfrogged a group of 5 or 6 other college players who are all very good, but who who either just sort of plateaued or maybe even tapered off a little bit while those two guys surged forward.